Thank you, Mayor. And first I need to substitute the amendment, and then once it's substituted, I'll speak to my substitute amendment. So I move to substitute the following for agenda item 35B. And it's in the handout that was passed out. Should I read it through or no? Let's go.
I don't believe it's necessary. The councilors all have the proposed amendment.
Basically, it's in effect changing from the political boundary to an interstate net boundary.
Do you wish to say anything else about your item? I have a question, and I wasn't here last week when this was put forward, but a question to the city attorney. Is it permissible to carve out specific exceptions to an ordinance, and would that, in essence, constitute a form of zoning? Or
the basic problem there, and we had a brief discussion about it last week with the vote, is anytime you carve out a portion of the population or a geographical area from the application of a given law, in order for that to pass equal protection analysis, and obviously the Equal Protection Clause, both the Texas and U.S. Constitutions, requires that citizens be treated equally. That in order to pass equal protection standards, you have to be able to demonstrate that there is a rational basis for the distinction, for carving out the particular class, population, or area. And as I indicated to the council member last week when she offered the amendment of carving out the District A, that I could not see a rational basis on face of carving out, should be based on political lines. Excuse me. I don't see any real distinction here with this amendment, unless it can be shown that this particular geographical area as defined in the amendment is somehow unique from the remainder of the city of Houston, such that there's a specific reason to treat it differently, and thusly a rational basis. And that is obviously not apparent on its face.
since the main ordinance was, or the main amendment was accepted last week, and it has the same issue as the proposed amendment here, it's already before us. I can't rule the amendment out of order, so the most expeditious thing would be to vote the amendment down.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. Earlier today, Councilmember Brown submitted us with a list of residents of District A that are in support of this. But after hearing information given by our city attorney, I must applaud her on the actions, but also I'm going to vote no on this amendment.
Councilmember Uraniga.
I'm troubled by this for a lot of reasons. I need to ask a question first. Are the District A civic associations part of the super neighborhood structure?
Yes, ma'am.
I think there are a lot of concerns, and there have been a lot of issues and discussions about what needs to happen here. And in some ways, I'm troubled by this way of dealing with things, because I think that these voices need to be heard. And I understand that there are concerns with these civic associations. I grew up in this area, in the 43rd Antoine, T.C. Jester area, in Candlelight Oaks. I went to Scarborough. This is a great part of town, and these neighborhoods have essentially ended up kind of off to the side rather than part of the discussion because of dealing with this way. I think that their voices are really important, and I think that the opposition opposition to this is real and it needs to be part of the conversation. And I'm troubled that somehow through this process of being part of this discussion with this amendment, that they were not just trying to carve them out of this ordinance, but carving them out of the conversation. And that's my concern. I appreciate what you're trying to do. I think you're trying to take care of your district, and I think you've done some work here. But again, they need to be part of the conversation with everyone, because if they're concerns, they're everyone's concerns. Thank you.
Councilmember Pennington.
If I could just ask the city attorney, I know we create, CHRSs and management districts, special districts, but those are recognized by state statute, I believe, and their criterion set up for the creation are we aware of anything in the state constitution or in our laws that allows this kind of delineation of the applicability of a planning ordinance?
No, it would be a question, as I indicated before, passing constitutional muster, and for the reasons that I stated, I cannot see on its face how it could. I don't know of any basis to rationally distinguish this particular geographical area from any other area of the city.
And there's nothing in the state statutes that would authorize anything like this?
No.
Vice Mayor Pro Tem Bradford.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Feather, let's go back to the rational basis, if we may, please. At some point, the city of Houston decided to use some rationale to deploy 42 within the 610 loop. And there were further discussions very recently that it was going to be deployed out to the Beltway. So how is it that we can do a constitutional activity that meets the requirements of the rational test, which you might be correctly identified, and exclude that geography and not exclude the proposed geography? And I'm not specifically responding to a political district, but a geography that's specified in the proposed amendment, please.
Well, it's rational for the city to determine the pace or the process of development. So it was rational for a city council when 42 was adopted to say, we are going to start by having supply only within the confines of the loop. And then, of course, it could have said, all right, the next step is to apply it within the confines of the Beltway. That would be rational. But to take one particular area, one spot of the city, so to speak, and say, well, we're just not going to do it there because what? Because the people don't favor it, or because the political representative doesn't favor it. That's not a rational basis.
So if the decision were to be made to phase it in via council districts, would that pass a rational test as opposed to using the 610 loop as a phase-in incremental, or using the Beltway as a phase-in geography? If we were to phase it in via council districts, meet the rational test?
You know, I'd have to give that some thought and see if there's any precedent that could support that. There is precedent to support the way 42 has progressed in terms of broadening out from the center of the city. I'm not sure that it would be rational to do it council district by council district. No.
Well, thank you. I do want to thank Councilmember Brown for offering the amendment, because I do believe that what you have on the table is constitutional. I believe it's a political decision, and whether we do it or not, and I do not think it is a good political decision to make, because the question becomes, do we want varied development requirements throughout our city? That's the question. And I think that if we were to create varied development requirements as it relates to 42, it would exacerbate confusion among developers, citizens, and others. So I'm not in support of it because of the political decision, but at the same time, I'd like to yield my time, if I may, Mayor, to allow Councilmember Brown to respond to my inquiry, please.
You may, she is in the queue as well.
Thank you, Councilmember, I yield.
Thank you, Councilmember, and you're bringing up everything that I was gonna bring up, and I thought we were just gonna substitute this initially, that I would speak to my amendments. But, we can certainly consider this as, future phase income into District A or whatever. We're not talking about District A now, we're talking about Northwest Houston, north of I-10 and west of 290. But the community right now, today, overwhelmingly against this, and when some of my colleagues asked me, are you sure about this? I had to go and confirm with each one of the board presidents how their civic associations are overwhelmingly against this. And they said, please put us on the list. And Mayor, you grew up in Spring Branch. This is your community, and they're saying, please do not, we do not want this in our neighborhoods. As their council member, I have to voice their concerns. Number one, they want to preserve the character of their neighborhood. They want to keep things as they are. They love the variance process, so when a developer wants to create higher density, they can have input and they can move forward and support that. That's a process that works for them. They want to continue that today. The future might hold different. So if we want to change that moving forward, we can consider this area as the new inner loop reversed. That's the way we can consider this.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember.
Thank you, Mayor. Question is probably for for Attorney Feldman. Just speaking on the amendment, just say, just plain angel advocate, just say, if this was something that could possibly be, what would be the downfall of a neighborhood opting out of this process if that was the case? Would it stop anything? Because my concern is, say if this is something that was legal and we could do, I wouldn't think that this would be the process, basically, of not communities, like Councilmember Noriega was stating, having the actual voices being heard from the community if this was something that we could do, but say if it was something that could be done. What would be the downfall of that community opting out of this and not being a part for anything coming down the line in the future?
Are you asking what would be the consequence if this was adopted?
Yes.
The consequence would be that the entire ordinance could be struck down as being unconstitutional. That's the consequence.
Just from this?
Because any person residing within the area would have a cause of action. And ostensibly one residing outside the area would also have a cause of action.
And then my other question is, if this was, and the consequences, but this wouldn't be the mechanism it would be done. We would have to have full disclosure of all the civic clubs that's listed in District A, not just submitting just a list, wouldn't their voice would have to be heard wanting to be out if this was the case, not just by just a list?
That's not how our government operates. It's the vote of this council that determines what the law is. So I don't quite understand.
Yeah,
I guess I'm saying that in order, for instance, I'm sorry, Mayor.
I was going to help him out here. The mechanism that we have used is the Super Neighborhood Council, and the process of asking civic associations, because there's hundreds of civic associations, to band together to work in their super neighborhoods, and then through the Super Neighborhood Council. And so we as a body have empowered the Super Neighborhood Council, and the reason we delayed this for a year and a half was to allow the Super Neighborhood Council to work. And in essence, they're saying that they don't care what the Super Neighborhood Council said, they want to go their own way.
That's the reason why I was asking, but this wouldn't be the mechanism what's before us today. It would be more voices being heard, letters being written to this body saying, individual XYZ, civic club, if it's, Spring Branch, and they have a strong super neighborhood out there, and I don't know what was the communication among Spring Branch to the Super Neighborhood Alliance, I'm not sure, but I'm just, doing the other side, like what would be the consequence if this was to take place, the consequence of this body moving forward on this? What's the downside? What's the consequence? And I think you've addressed that, and the Mayor also has addressed it about it would take more than just this. It would take more of a community effort for their voices being heard to us. So I just wanted to make sure, and definitely I would not, out of respect for my colleague, I would not support this amendment.